And number 26, the quadratic function above models the height above the ground, h in feet of a projectile x seconds after you have been launched vertically. If I equal to h of x is graphed in the xy plane, which of the following represent the real life meaning at the positive x-intercept of the graph? Okay, the positive x-intercept of the graph. So let's think about so the x-intercept, we don't necessarily have to solve for exactly what the x-intercept is, but we know if it's x-intercept, that means the graph had to go through the x-axis, okay? If it goes through the x-axis at the x-intercept, the y value is always equal to 0, okay? So for the x-intercept, the y value had to equal 0. And in this model here, the y value is the h of x, okay, which represent the height of the projectile. Okay, so that means pretty much for this question, if it's at the x-intercept, and the y value is 0, which means the height have to be 0. Okay, the height had to be the 0, which means, okay, if you think about this, what happened is this is a parabola. So it's x squared is parabola, and the parabola opens downward because a negative a value there. Okay, so let's just do a rough sketch. Let's just say this is the graph. So yeah, this is our x-axis. This is the y-axis. So start from 0, 0. Let's just well, for this one actually doesn't start with 0, 0. Technically start with 10 because that's the y-intercept. Okay, let me draw it a little bit more accurately. Okay, so I have x and y, and then y-intercept at 10, and then it goes up, and then it comes back down. Okay, so the x-intercept we're talking about is actually here. So, and we know that it's that point because this is a positive x-intercept, right? So it's the point right there. So this models the path of the projectile. So it makes sense, right? Think about if we're launching like a rocket or like hitting a ball right up in the air. So it goes up first, and then it will eventually come back down because we have gravity on Earth, right? That's pulling down whatever the thing is. Okay, so it will eventually come back down to the ground. So pretty much at this point, and that's the x-intercept, the height is 0. Right, so what does that mean? Yeah, so remember the x value here represents the amount of time, right? The amount of time that it travels, and then the y value represents the height. Okay, so at this point here, this should tell us the amount of time when the projectile hits the ground again. Okay, when the projectile hits the ground, because the height is 0, so it hits the ground. Okay, so a says the initial height. No, that won't be it. Okay, initial height is actually the y-intercept, so that's the 10. Okay, the maximum height will be the vertex, right? That will be this point. So they asked about what does a vertex represent, then that's the maximum height. Okay, so not B. The time, C says the time at which projectile reaches maximum height, then that will be the x value, the vertex. And so again, not it. Then had to be D, right? The time at which the projectile hits the ground. That should be our answer because y equals 0. That's when the height equals 0, so it hits the ground. Okay, so letter D will be our final answer.